Let's go back to the former president. He's coming to Chicago today. Illinois, of course, a Democratic stronghold. The former president's going to be meeting with a group of journalists. He's had a strained history with the press. Malik, you described this as Trump walking into the lion's den.
Yes, and absolutely, that is it. This is not a very safe space. Donald Trump was criticized in, I believe that was February, when he attended the Black Conservative Federation's gala in South Carolina. He was criticized when he went to Detroit, in the church in Detroit, because people were saying that there were too many white people there. Republicans have always been criticized for not showing up. Here is an opportunity where Donald Trump has decided to show up, and people are protesting him showing up. And what the unfortunate thing is, this is the National Association of Black Journalists. So these are the people who fill newsrooms, production staff, and they don't want to hear from a United States presidential candidate. That tells you the problem that Black people, especially on the left, Democrats have. Donald Trump should attend, and I'm glad that he's going.
Michael, I want to get your perspective from the other side of things. You know, sources tell us that the NABJ is still negotiating with Vice President Harris's team. She has been out of town. They've said that there were scheduling issues, is why she wouldn't be able to attend. But I guess your response to what Malik was just saying there, sort of the optics of the former president showing up to this group that, you know, he described as the lion's den, and Harris is not there.
Well, a couple things. Harris isn't going to be there because she'll be at a congresswoman's funeral, a congresswoman from Texas. So her being the nominee for only, you know, the last 8-9 days, that's why she's not going to be there. But in terms of Trump, look, journalists have an issue with Trump showing up because of the way he's talked to people like April Ryan, Jamel Hill, Black journalists who he's not just denigrated, but really character attacked. And so the idea that he would then show up at NABJ and use Black journalists as a tool, as a campaign tool for his rhetoric, I think is the issue that they are dealing with. And then to have Harris Faulkner, who I've done her show, you know, I think having a Fox News journalist as one of the people interviewing is really where their problem is. It's going to be interesting. I don't think that Black journalists are going to allow themselves to be used as a political tool. So I'll be watching.
Malik, the NABJ said that every election year they invite presidential candidates to speak at their convention. George W. Bush, John Kerry spoke in 2004, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton were there in 2007, and then President Biden spoke virtually in 2020. Former President Trump did not in 2020. Some critics have called his appearance today ingenuine. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. It's an inconvenient argument. If you've had a problem with Republicans not showing up, and then when they do show up, we're going to criticize you, or people like my colleague seems to believe that we're going to use these people as a political prop. It is always the case with Republicans. Kamala Harris just had Megan Thee Stallion and was quoting Quavo, something that seems to be taken out of a Tyler Perry skit. But we're talking about like disingenuous behavior. I think that Donald Trump should show up. The people who are criticizing Donald Trump, especially for journalists who are supposed to be feeding us information, objective information, for them to say we don't want to hear from a United States presidential candidate, I think it is utterly ridiculous. But again, I am glad that Donald Trump is going into the lion's den.
Michael, your response to that?
I mean, there's a lot there. I don't know, referring to calling it a Tyler Perry movie, like, good luck showing up to the cookout after that one. Donald Trump has been
I think I would be invited to the cookout.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Donald Trump has been...
Trust me, I can take you around some places to a cookout.
Good luck with that, man. Donald Trump, his rhetoric has just not been divisive, but it's been racist. He's referred to African countries as S-holes. He was referred to Black neighborhoods as war zones. It's not just about what he says. It's the context in what he says it. It's the way he uses Black bodies. You know, he talked about the other day wanting to give police immunity days after a Black woman was shot on camera. You know, you've just got to look at not what he's saying, but who he's saying it about, the people that he puts on stage and uses as pawns. I know the line's shorter on the other side, but I wouldn't let myself be used by that. I'm not saying you are, but I'm just saying I wouldn't let myself be used.
Well, you definitely suggested it right there. And we don't need to have conversations on national television about which Black person gets an opportunity to be invited to the cookout, because you'll be on the losing end of this conversation. I can guarantee you that.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.